Time for the French newspaper review now here on France 24. Florence Filminot is with us here on set. France commemorated a very dark chapter of its history this weekend, didn't it? This is the Veldiv roundup.
That's right. It was the 70th anniversary of the Rafle du Veldiv. So just a quick reminder, when French police rounded up 13,152 Jewish men, women, and children and kept them in a velodrome not far from our studio here in Paris before carting them off to Auschwitz. Now, for a long time, this was a dark chapter of French history that wasn't really discussed here in France openly. And yesterday there was a ceremony in Paris when President François Hollande reaffirmed the responsibility of the French administration. And here it is on the cover of Libération, the left-leaning newspaper, Veldiv, un crime français, a French crime. And this is what he said yesterday. He said, this is a crime that was committed in France by France. So very, very strong words. And in recognizing the responsibility of France in the Veldiv roundup, Hollande was breaking away from the former socialist president, François Mitterrand, who had a very ambiguous relationship with the chief of police who carried out the roundup, and he kept quiet about it. And Libération points out that so did Sarkozy. Sarkozy just pretty much avoided talking about it. According to Libération, the very first president to have had the courage to talk about this was Jacques Chirac. He was the first president to recognize the role France played in this in 1995. And in their editorial, Libération applauds Jacques Chirac for having the courage to deal with the shameful chapters of French history, but they say that's not enough. Remembering isn't enough. France needs to continue fighting against racism, xenophobia, and anti-Semitism.
And a lot of the papers focusing on that relationship, aren't they, between Hollande and Chirac? The two met briefly on Sunday.
That's right. Libération has an interesting article that points out that they fought a lot in their history. François Hollande was the head of the opposition when Jacques Chirac was president, so they didn't always have nice words for each other, but they have a lot in common. For instance, they're both from the same region in France, the Corrèze region. That brings them together. Also, according to Libération, the relationship is known to be very amicable. Some even say they have a complicit bond. The last time they met publicly was in June 2011, and Jacques Chirac jokingly perhaps said that he was going to vote for Hollande. Maybe not so jokingly, according to an article in Le Figaro that points out one thing that they do have in common too is a certain dislike for Nicolas Sarkozy. And according to this article in Le Figaro, their meeting yesterday was another display of anti-Sarkozyism.
And meanwhile, in Sarkozy's UMP party, of course, leadership battle underway. Lots of candidates.
Right. This is an article in Le Parisien that says the fever is rising within the UMP. Now, whether it's declared candidates or rumored candidates, the UMP is making a lot of noise. It's kind of hard to keep track of just who wants in on the leadership. Now, the two main rivals are the current party leader, Jean-François Copé, and the former Prime Minister, François Fillon. But a lot of people want in. For instance, the latest person to have declared that she wants maybe to become the president of the UMP is Nathalie Kosciusko-Morizet. So she was the former campaign manager for Nicolas Sarkozy. That vote will take place in November, but it's likely to get ugly in the meantime.
And moving on, Figaro focuses on the government plan. This is to tax the super rich 75%.
75% for people who make more than 1 million euros a year. And Le Figaro has a very kind of panicky, alarming title today. They say that the exile of upper management has already begun. Now, it points out that the law hasn't even been voted yet, and yet high earners are already starting to flee abroad. And in their editorial, Le Figaro, so the right-leaning newspaper, talked about what they call the great fiscal exodus that France is going to experience, and says that this will actually translate into a shortfall for the government and therefore further debt. And according to Le Figaro, it's madness to put such a system in place. And they interview a banker named Philippe Villain, who says that our politicians want to chew us up, bankers and managers, and spit us out. So it's also a very alarming interview with him. And he says that there's this whole class of managers in France, high earners, who feel threatened. They feel like the government wants their hide. And according to this interview, the driving force of France's economy is going to be hard hit with consequences that are going to last in the long term.
Florence, thanks very much. That's Florence Filminot with the French papers here on France 24.